Welcome to the Morning Walk with Murty Digital Stroll.
Thank you. It's great to be back for another Gurukul session with you and with our listener.
Definitely. I want you to imagine driving down the exact street where you grew up, looking out the window, and realizing that the architecture, the smells, the sounds, like the people, they've all been so completely overwritten that it literally feels like you've crossed a border into a foreign country.
Yeah, that is an incredibly disorienting concept to start us off with.
It is.
Right.
But that's exactly what we're looking at today. I am your wisdom seeker, the mentor of the Antaryami VA Academy.
And I'm your resident strategic auditor, the architect of Antaryami.
Exactly. And today, we're auditing a 40-year demographic erasure.
Right. And to our listener, just to ground us, when we use the Digital Prism to look at source material, we aren't just, summarizing text.
Right, definitely not.
We are extracting the legacy cut of Project Antaryami, like the hidden architecture of how human beings actually experience time, memory, and in this case, profound displacement.
Yeah. And today's source code is, it's an intensely personal, really raw retrospective. It was published on Write.s.
Right. It's actually a Facebook post originally by Dr. Vivekanand Rayapeti.
Yes, exactly. And he's chronicling the absolute transformation of his childhood neighborhood in the town of Kadapa in India.
It's a heavy text, but before we extract a single line of that code, we need to establish the operational parameters of this digital stroll.
Right. Very important.
Yeah, because this text contains some deeply personal, culturally, and politically sensitive observations, specifically regarding demographic shifts between Hindu and Muslim communities.
Right. So as curators of Project Antaryami, our mandate here is strict impartiality.
Absolutely.
We're here to report on the mechanics, the environment, and the human emotions encoded within this specific text. We are not endorsing or validating or, taking sides on the socio-political viewpoints that the author presents.
Right. Our objective is strictly to audit the lived experience of the author exactly as he has written it.
Perfect. So let's get into it. Because the foundation of any audit is establishing the baseline, right?
Yeah, you have to know what was there before you can understand what was lost.
Exactly. So to understand his devastation, the present reality, we first have to reconstruct the blueprint of his past.
Right. So Dr. Rayapeti is returning to Kadapa after many years away.
Yeah. And usually, he tells us, he just takes the bypass road.
Right. He zips past the heavy traffic. He hits local pilgrimage spots like Vempali Gandhi.
Which, for our listener, that's just a quick, well-known stop for travelers. People seeking a brief spiritual connection without getting bogged down in the actual city traffic.
Exactly. But on this specific trip, he alters his route.
He does.
He decides to drive right through the very heart of his old childhood coordinates.
And he maps out those coordinates explicitly in the text. He names Gadachurla Ramarao Street.
Right.
And Mochampeta and Madhwa Street.
Yeah, and he describes the baseline memory of these streets as having the distinct, unmistakable atmosphere of an Agraharam.
Okay, now, we really need to decode that term for the listener.
Yeah, definitely. Because an Agraharam isn't just, a label for a residential block.
Right. It's not just a zoning term. It historically refers to a traditional, predominantly Brahmin neighborhood, and it usually radiates outward from a central temple.
Right. And it operates on a very specific cultural and sensory rhythm.
Yes, the rhythm is the key here. The author anchors his memories to the sensory inputs that define that exact rhythm.
Yeah, like he's looking for the visual of women in silk saris meticulously drawing these intricate rangoli patterns on the ground at dawn.
Oh, wow.
He's searching for the scent of jasmine vines blooming on front porches.
Right. And he's listening for the deep, resonant acoustics of temple bells ringing out from the local Shiva temple.
Exactly. These aren't just quaint memories for him. They are the structural pillars of his reality.
Yeah, they're the foundational code. He actually lists the spiritual landmarks that dictated the flow of the entire community.
Right. The Raghavendra Swami Mutt.
The Ramya Laveri temple.
The Anjaneya Swami temple.
And the Shankara Mutt and Ahobala Mutt.
Yeah. These mutts, these spiritual institutions, they functioned as the ultimate gathering spaces.
Right. They dictated when people woke up, when they congregated, how the entire street basically functioned.
And he doesn't just map out the spiritual architecture.
No, he maps out the intellectual hub, too.
Right. He points specifically to the Ramakrishna High School and Junior College.
Yeah, and he recalls this Telugu Pandit, Puttaparthi Narayanacharyulu, delivering these absolutely captivating, profound discourses on the Shiva Tandavam.
Which is the classical cosmic dance of creation and destruction, for context.
Right. And just think about the density of that memory. This wasn't a neighborhood where you just parked your car and went to sleep.
Oh, not at all.
It was a deeply integrated, totally self-sustaining cultural ecosystem.
Let's apply a structural analogy here. As the wisdom seeker, I think you'd appreciate this.
Let's hear it.
It is somewhat akin to carefully constructing a civilization in a complex city-building simulation game.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
You spend hours, maybe years, strategically placing the schools, aligning the temples, organizing the residential streets to cultivate a very specific type of cultural output.
Right, you're fine-tuning everything.
Exactly. You achieve perfect harmony, you save the game, and you step away to build your career elsewhere.
Which is exactly what the author did, right?
Yeah.
You moved to places like Coimbatore, Cochin, and Hyderabad.
Yes. And then you finally boot that save file back up, fully expecting to walk through your masterpiece.
Only to find that another player has logged in and completely rewritten the game's base code.
Exactly. The schools you placed are gone, the zoning laws have been inverted, the avatars are totally different.
Right. And I mean, the human mind just struggles to process spatial erasure on that scale.
It really does.
But the question that jumps out at me from the text isn't just that the neighborhood changed, it's how it changed.
Right, the mechanics of it.
Yeah. We are talking about the total demographic replacement of an established cultural epicenter.
Yeah.
And as the strategic auditor, I need you to unpack the catalyst for this. Because when I read the source, the trigger mechanism seems, absurdly small.
You are referring to the chili pounding shop.
I am. I have to push back on the mechanics of this. I mean, the author claims this massive migration started because a neighbor, Sri Upalahadiyam Lakshminarayana, transferred for work and sold his residential house to a Muslim family.
Right.
And he notes that because of the existing culture of religious tolerance, nobody minded the new neighbors at first.
Right. It wasn't an immediate conflict.
Exactly. But then the new owners converted the front of the house into a commercial shop with a literal milling machine to crush dried red chilies.
Yeah.
Are we really supposed to believe that an entire neighborhood's cultural erasure was catalyzed by a spice grinder? How does a localized zoning issue escalate into mass displacement?
Well, I mean, it sounds mundane until you examine the physical reality of unregulated urban spaces.
Okay, walk me through that.
We often assume demographic shifts require grand political decrees or sweeping ideological movements, right?
Sure, yeah.
But this text illustrates how environments are actually rewritten through localized physical friction.
Right, the sensory shift.
Exactly. Consider that sensory shift. We went from the subtle scent of jasmine and the acoustics of temple bells
to the relentless mechanical pounding of a commercial milling machine vibrating through shared brick walls.
Yes. And the chili dust.
Oh, chili dust.
Exactly. Imagine thousands of dried red chilies being pulverized into fine powder every single day.
In a densely packed residential street, no less.
Right. The airborne particulate matter becomes literally suffocating. You cannot breathe the air on your own porch.
Wow, yeah, your eyes are burning in your living room.
So the author describes this as a profound physical discomfort. It is an environmental displacement.
Right, so the social contract of a quiet Agraharam was broken not by theology, but by industrial intrusion.
Precisely. So it triggers the slow-motion domino effect.
Right, because when people complain, when disputes broke out over the noise and the toxic air, the author notes the shop owners would resort to intimidation.
Yeah, the friction just became unbearable for them.
So neighbors who couldn't handle the physical environment began selling their ancestral homes to brokers. They simply retreated.
Yeah.
The author's own family eventually moved to a place called Adani, ostensibly due to his father's old age and his sister's job, but it was clearly part of this larger, grinding wave of attrition.
Right. One by one, family by family, the original code of the street was basically deleted.
That's wild to think about.
And the author makes a very cynical but structurally critical observation here.
Oh.
He notes that while the original residents were raised to live together with broad-mindedness, the practical reality of the situation was entirely asymmetrical.
I see.
One group found the friction intolerable, slowly adjusted their lives, and left. The other group systematically purchased the vacated properties, consolidating their position and expanding their commercial footprint.
Wow.
It is a textbook audit of how micro changes in zoning and environment dictate macro migrations.
Yeah. And when that final neighbor sold their house and left for Donnie, the transformation wasn't just a statistical change in a municipal registry.
No, it fundamentally altered the physical reality of what a human being sees, hears, and smells when they drive down that street.
Exactly. So let's look through the digital prism at the present day. Because the author is trapped in this moving car, driving through this completely rewritten landscape, and he's devastated.
Yeah, he is literally brought to tears.
He refuses to even step out of the vehicle.
Right, and we really need to strip away our analytical jargon for a moment and just sit with the psychological shock of what he is witnessing.
Yeah, definitely.
The complete erasure of the cultural anchors he spent his childhood building is absolute.
Right.
The Ramakrishna High School and Junior College, the site of those profound discourses on the Shiva Tandavam, it's simply gone.
Yeah, and the visual assault of the new landscape is jarring for him. The streets that were designed for rangoli and religious processions are now dominated by mutton and chicken slaughter shops.
Right, and auto repair garages.
Welding sparks. Puncture repair stalls.
Yeah, the foundational infrastructure has aggressively shifted from agrarian and spiritual to purely industrial and commercial.
And the loss of culinary anchors plays a massive role in this trauma, too.
Oh, absolutely. Food is one of the deepest ways human beings code memory to geography.
Exactly. He specifically looks for the Many Hotel, which was a local landmark famously run by Madras Brahmins, known for a very specific taste of idli sambar.
Right.
And it has been completely wiped out.
Yeah, and down the street, the Ashoka Hotel has been replaced by an Arabic, non-vegetarian restaurant.
Right. The taste, the smell, the visual aesthetic of his childhood, literally none of it exists in that three-dimensional space anymore.
But there is a moment in this drive that is incredibly heavy, and we need to navigate it carefully.
Yes, the comment from the back seat.
Right. A voice from the backseat of the car, either the author's wife or his son, looks out at the transformed street and remarks that the area looks like Pakistan or Hyderabad's old city.
Right. And then an even more provocative comparison is made. The voice asks the author to imagine their situation akin to the Kashmiri Pandits.
Yeah. And as curators, we must parse the function of that statement within the text.
Right, because the mass displacement of the Kashmiri Pandits is one of the most famously traumatic and violent exodus events in modern history.
Exactly. So the author is drawing a direct emotional parallel between his family's localized, real estate-driven departure from a commercializing street and a grand historical trauma.
Yeah. And I want to turn directly to you, the listener, for a moment here. Just put yourself in the back seat of that car.
Yeah, imagine it.
Imagine driving down the exact street where you learned to ride a bike, where you went to school, where you knew the name of every single neighbor, and you find not a single recognizable anchor.
The industries are different, the architecture is different, the very air smells foreign.
Exactly. At what point does a place stop being your hometown and become an entirely different reality? If every physical marker of your past is bulldozed and replaced, does your memory of that place even matter anymore?
That psychological crisis, the realization that your memory has no physical anchor left in the real world, it forces the human mind to seek a coping mechanism.
Right.
And that actually leads us to the final segment of our audit.
Because Dr. Rayapiti doesn't end his retrospective with his personal tears in a car.
No, he doesn't. He elevates this localized, hyper-specific experience of a changing street into a grand, fatalistic abstraction about the nature of human history itself.
Yeah, he attempts to decode this tragedy by extensively quoting from a very famous piece of Telugu literature.
Right, Mahaprasthanam.
Yes, which translates to The Great Journey, written by the revolutionary poet Sri Sri.
Yeah.
And the poetry he chooses is incredibly dark. He uses it to frame his experience not just as a sad municipal zoning change, but as a symptom of the brutal, inescapable nature of human existence.
Right, and we have to unpack the actual lines he references to understand the weight of this framing.
Okay, let's do it.
The core theme of Sri's poem, as quoted by the author, asserts that human history is not something to be proud of.
Right.
It is a continuous, unbroken record of conflict, of bloodshed, of exploitation, and crucially, of the strong displacing the weak.
Yeah. The poem argues that the entire history of the human race is steeped in the exploitation of others.
Exactly. The historical references the poem makes are sweeping and violent.
It talks about history being soaked in blood and tears. It points to historical conquerors, the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan, the invasions by Ghazni and Ghori, the raids of the Vikings.
Yeah. It portrays human civilization as a cycle where artificial empires and artificial laws are built by those who think they are the masters of the earth, only to inevitably collapse like houses of cards when a stronger, more dominant force rises to overwrite them.
Wow. It is a philosophy of absolute cosmic displacement.
It really is.
Okay, as the wisdom seeker, I have to step in and challenge this mapping.
Go for it.
Look at the scale of what we are auditing here. The author is equating violent historical military conquests, like the Viking hordes burning villages, Genghis Khan sweeping across continents,
Right.
with a gradual urban demographic shift that literally started with a guy putting a chili pounding machine on his front porch.
Yeah, I see your point.
Right. Leading to people voluntarily selling their homes to real estate brokers and moving to Adani.
Right.
So is it an accurate reading of the legacy code to equate localized gentrification and commercial displacement with bloody military conquest?
Well,
Isn't there a massive disconnect in the causality here?
your pushback is entirely valid from a literal mechanistic standpoint.
Okay.
A real estate transaction negotiated by a broker is not the Viking horde.
Right.
A milling machine is not a cavalry charge. However, if we look closer through the digital prism at the internal human experience, we see why the author makes this leap.
Okay, explain that.
From a cognitive perspective, the end result feels utterly identical to the author, complete and total erasure. Okay. So the poetry isn't meant to be a literal historical comparison. It's an emotional amplifier for his grief.
Precisely. When an individual faces the total annihilation of their foundational physical memories, logical urban planning theories don't offer any solace.
No, of course not.
You can't process the loss of your childhood by looking at a municipal zoning map.
Right, that's fair.
The grief is so profound, so disorienting, that the mind demands a grand historical narrative to validate the pain.
Wow.
So by invoking Genghis Khan, Ghazni, and the inherent brutality of human history, the author is finding a framework to process his localized shock.
I see. He is essentially saying, my street wasn't just rezoned for commercial use, it was conquered, because conquest and displacement is the fundamental, tragic rule of the human timeline.
Exactly. It is fatalism functioning as the ultimate coping mechanism. If the entire world is locked in a continuous cycle of the strong displacing the weak, if every empire falls like a house of cards, then the loss of the jasmine vines and the temple bells on Gadishur-Lama Rao Street isn't a personal failure. Right. It is just a microscopic example of a universal, inescapable truth.
Exactly.
Man, it's a beautifully melancholic way to frame a very raw, localized shock.
It is.
And that framing is the true legacy code we have extracted today. I mean, we have audited a 40-year urban transformation of Kadapa.
Right.
We trace the baseline of an Agraharam, rich in traditional culture, functioning as a spiritual and intellectual hub.
Yeah, and we analyze the mechanical, almost mundane catalyst of a disruptive commercial chili shop that basically broke the local social contract.
Right, and we tracked how that environmental friction led to an organic but absolute demographic migration, completely rewriting the architectural and cultural landscape.
And confronted with the jarring reality of that new landscape, the author utilized the poetic fatalism of street to process his profound sense of personal displacement.
Yeah. It is a stark reminder that the physical spaces we inhabit are not static hard drives holding our memories.
No, not at all.
They are constantly being overwritten by the needs, the commerce, and the cultures of the present, often at the total expense of the past.
So, as we prepare to log off from this Gurukul session, we want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Right.
We've spent this time examining how one man's childhood street was systematically deleted and replaced over 4 decades.
Yeah.
If all human history is indeed a constant cycle of displacement and rewriting, as the author and the poet suggest, what physical space in your own life do you currently assume is permanent?
That's a great question. When you think about the neighborhood where you feel safest, where your deepest memories are anchored, how will future generations rewrite the code of your own hometown 40 years from now?
It's definitely something to think about.
It is. Keep seeking, keep auditing. We'll see you on the next Digital Stroll.